Hi, I'm Robin Bensley. Welcome to Chow Time. We are a cornbread kind of family. In fact, I filmed a number of Chow Time shows featuring cornbread. For instance, buttermilk spoon cornbread. It is light as a feather. It's kind of like a souffle. And then there's pumpkin cornbread, great combination of flavors. And then there's Spiffy Jiffy cornbread, which is dense and rich and thick. It's so good. And then I also did a butterscotch corn cake, which is half cornbread and half cake, insanely moist. Well, it's time for me to come up with another idea for a cornbread recipe. So that I'm going to do. Now, I will say that I have never made this before. This is just in my mind so far. So you and I will discover at the end if this works or not. By the way, all those cornbread recipes I mentioned to you, if you go to my website, you'll see a tab, Click and Print. Hit that, and I have hundreds of recipes. They're all categorized, kind of like an online cookbook, and you can just find those cornbread recipes and just print it right out. All right, this recipe, we're going to start off with 4 things in a big bowl. I have about 4 cups of grape tomatoes that I cut in half. So we'll put those in. And then 2 bunches of scallions, which is about, a dozen or so. And I'm going to slice these real thin. Include a little of that green. We'll add those to the bowl. And 1 cup of cheddar cheese, sharp cheddar cheese. I want to lightly beat an egg. Toss that in. That's just going to give it a little bit of lift. And we'll mix that up. Next up, in a small bowl, I'm going to put 1/4 cup of olive oil and about 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, a teaspoon of salt, and I'm going to use some dried dill because it smells so good. And I thought dill and cornbread and tomatoes, that goes. So about a tablespoon's worth of dried dill. And then garlic. I've got about 5 cloves of garlic that I minced. Whisk that together. See, there's not a huge amount of dressing. This is more to add a lot of flavor and give it some moisture. So we'll add that to our tomato mixture. Give it a toss. And now here comes the cornbread. I baked off 1 package of cornbread in an 8x8 pan. And as you can see, it's very dark on top. I wanted it to have kind of a nice crust to it so it holds up in this bake. And so I let it cool down, and I'm going to cut it into squares. You know, just kind of little bite-sized squares. Like that. Now I'm going to add these to the tomato mixture. And you always want to add them last because you don't want them to get too soggy. You want a little bit of a crisp in there. This kind of reminds me of, what are you doing? Oh, I forgot we're a cornbread family. This kind of reminds me a little bit of like an Italian bread salad, except I'm using cornbread and I'm going to bake it. We toss that very gently. Just kind of mix that cornbread in there. I have a lovely casserole dish. I buttered it. This is going in there. Well, if nothing else, it looks pretty. Then I'm going to add more cheddar cheese all over the top. Probably about another cup. Now I'm going to pop it in a 400-degree oven for, I'm guessing, maybe 20 minutes or so. I think that's all we're going to need. And I'm going to say a little prayer after it goes in. There it is. Cheddar cornbread tomato bake. And by the way, it was 25 minutes till I was happy with the looks. So now, close the oven up. And we'll see what this is like. Not bad. I love the dill. To me, the dill makes it. The cornbread is a nice touch. It's softened, but not too much. I would maybe add a little more salt to this and maybe some pepper. I didn't put any pepper in it. A little bit more salt and pepper, but you know, this is kind of a nice vegetarian meal. It's a keeper.